And to culture wars, well, the big culture war right now is, of course, this great crusade to persuade us that racism is everywhere. Our Western societies are rotten with it. And last week came a great teaching moment, or so we were told. Bubba Wallace is a black driver in a supposedly redneck sport, America's National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing. And with Black Lives Matter protests going hysterical, it was Wallace who demanded that NASCAR ban the Confederate flag from its events, and he won on that score. But last week, one of his team inspected the garage that was assigned to his car at Sunday's race at Taylor, Alabama. And a shock, a noose, racism.
NASCAR has launched an investigation after a noose was found in the pit garage of driver Bubba Wallace at the Talladega Superspeedway in Alabama. It comes after Wallace successfully pushed the series to ban the Confederate flag and its tracks and venues. Wallace is the only full-time black driver in NASCAR's Elite Cup series. On Twitter, Wallace said, "The despicable act of racism and hatred leaves me incredibly saddened and serves as a painful reminder of how much further we have to go as a society."
And then cue the whole bend the knee race ritual that's sort of now required. NASCAR declared it was angry and outraged. The FBI sent no fewer than 15 agents to investigate this piece of rope. And every driver and crew member in Sunday's race walked in solidarity behind Wallace's car and pushed it to the pole position.
The entire garage area has rallied around Bubba Wallace.
That will likely serve as an enduring image for generations of NASCAR fans.
Well, I would rather hope that it serves as an enduring image, but it won't be, because the FBI quickly found this so-called noose was in fact the pull rope to the garage that had been cut off last November. It was apparently was in the way and left in the garage months before anyone knew that Bubba Warren would be around to use it. So no hate crime at all. Joining me is Rowan Dean, editor of the Spectator Australia, author of a brilliant, lightly disguised novel, and host of Outsiders on Sky every Sunday. Rowan, it turns out that far from showing, in Bubba Warren's words, how much further we have to go, this farce showed that we've in fact overshot by a mile.
Yeah, Andrew, or you could interpret it that we've got a lot further to go in actually recognising how fraudulent a lot, not all, by all means, but a lot of the hysteria surrounding race at the moment is. And let's just unpack this. There's a few things that are deeply disturbing about this story. First of all, a noose is a noose. It's hard to mistake a noose for something else. A noose isn't just a piece of string with a loop in it. The report that you played from the Fox Sports guy saying a noose was found in the garage, well, that's misleading reporting, because it should have said a piece of rope or a piece of string that could have been a noose or looked like an attempt to mimic a noose or something like that. But there was no doubt in the reporter's mind that this was a noose and it was there specifically to terrorise Bubba Wallace. So pretty hopeless reporting there to begin with. Then we've got the fact that, 15 FBI agents are pouring all over this piece of rope before one of them actually says, you know what, it's the bit you pull the string down. Now, I've got one of those string garages. Anyone who's got a garage knows that those things are. They don't look anything much like a noose at all, but I guess you could misconstrue one as. So there's that's wrong with it. But what we've got here, Andrew, is this would be hilarious if it weren't so serious, much like you were discussing with Rita and Daniel about the black and white chess pieces. This would be really funny, but it's actually really serious, because what it tells us now, it's a bit like those drawings where there's a famous psychological drawing where it either looks like a bloke with a cigar, a pipe, or it looks like a beautiful girl in a bikini, and it depends on your frame of mind which one you see. Increasingly, because people are being told that there's all this racism out there, that there's all these racial attacks out there, because it's being rammed down their throats, people are seeing it where it doesn't exist. And that is incredibly dangerous. And not only that, I mean, this builds on, let's go back to Jussie Smollett and those several events a couple of years ago, which were deliberately faked racial attacks for all sorts of nefarious purposes. But now we've got unintentionally faked racial attacks. And what happens, Andrew, is you start to believe, you hear all this, oh, there's all these racial attacks, there's all these racial attacks, so you start to see them where there aren't. And the danger with that, of course, is that if you're telling people that they are either racists or that they are the victims of racism, they're going to start to behave in different ways to how they would behave if they believed the person opposite them actually had genuine, decent motives.
Oh yeah, I think this is a process of conditioning, and I think it's just so sad. It's so disempowering for young black kids who actually think, oh my God, the whole world's against me. It doesn't need to be that way at all. And, you know, you're beating the optimism out of them. It's just so sad. Precisely. I'll give you another really strange case, Rowan. Sean King is a race activist in the United States with 1 million Twitter followers. He used to be with Black Lives Matter, and he introduced Bernie Sanders in his campaign for the Democrat nomination. So, you know, he's got some clout. He's in fact America's Bruce Pascoe. He claims he's black, but birth records and other records show both his parents are white. He says, oh, well, look, my dad was actually, you know, actually the illegitimate child, but he's no idea his father may or may not have been. But that hasn't stopped him from being so anti-white that he's tweeted now that statues of the white European-looking Jesus should come down, and so should all murals and stained glass windows of this white Jesus and his European mother, because they're a gross form of white supremacy. So I guess that's it for Michelangelo's brilliant Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel, which I think is perhaps the finest piece of art ever painted. But never mind. How do you understand this kind of fakery and race hustling?
Well, again, this is building on what we were just talking about. And in fact, with the NOOSE thing, there was also the week before a swing, a bit of rope from a come off a swing that would look like a noose as well, and people saw that. So here we go again. People will see what they want to see if they are looking at it through the prism of race. Now, the reality is painters, great art, great works of art, used models. So, for example, Michelangelo would use, he had to look around to find his perfect, I forget who it was, you would know better than me, Andrew, but he was looking for a particular model. I think it was a Bacchus, that's right. And he went out into the streets and he found someone who had exactly the right kind of
He found an Italian. He found an Italian. And what this hustler doesn't understand... this hustler doesn't understand that most cultures have a Jesus in their own skin colour. You go to Africa, you see what colour Jesus is there. Rowan Dean, thanks so much for your time, mate.